Charles Barkley hates the Lakers. Historically. He's always said things about the coverage of the Lakers, why they get so much coverage, them being overrated. Has always had a word to say or two about LeBron James. And when you mesh the two worlds together of him being very critical of LeBron James and being hypercritical of the Los Angeles Lakers at the same time, you get this nasty vitriol from a Charles Barkley. So he said on Inside the NBA that, JJ Redick, don't come for the king because I'm gonna come for you and all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. He was like, oh, you just the next coach to get fired from the Lakers. You over here dating the ugly chick. Lakers ain't going nowhere. They trash. They fired Frank Vogel. He was a good coach. They fired Darvin Ham. He was a good coach. Now you there. You a lame duck. You about to get fired too. And on the surface, you're going to be like, damn, man, like that's kind of mean. But then I'm like, I understand where it comes from. JJ Redick is a very different character. He's a guy that has his own opinion, very strong opinion, and he's very used to being hated. Back when he was a podcaster and had his Old Man and 3 podcast, he criticized the players back in the 80s and 90s. He also criticized the players back in the 70s and the 60s. Said that they were, carpenters and all types of stuff, and they need to stop hanging on to their brand of basketball and thinking that it's the golden era of the game. So when you hear Charles Barkley talk about the situation, it sound personal. It's not one of those things where it's like he's just making a funny comment. It's personal. Why? Because JJ Redick came after his era of basketball. So I can understand it. So if you're gonna talk about somebody like that, and JJ Redick is the one that said something before where, the late great Jerry West said something about him, I can understand why Charles Barkley responded that way. So I was waiting to hear what JJ Redick said. So they asked him at the press conference, the pregame before the game against the Hawks, did you hear what Charles Barkley said? And this is what JJ Redick had to say.
I didn't make it all the way through the clip. I got to be honest with you. My resting heart rate is probably 64. I watched the clip. It was 64. Literally don't care. I have other thoughts, but don't care.
So that to me told me that he listened to the whole clip. He watched the whole thing. And the old JJ that had the Old Man and the 3 podcast would have responded to Charles Barkley. New JJ, that's the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, he ain't going to respond to Charles Barkley. Why? Because it's low-hanging fruit. Why would you do that? And now you're going to be a distraction for your team. And if your team goes on a 3-game losing streak, now they're going to start looking at you and be like, well, if you keep talking to guys like Charles Barkley, this is why you're not focused. So he wants to say something because there's a lot to say about Charles Barkley, right? About how entertaining he is. But when it comes to the X and O's of the game, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about most of the time. Nobody comes to Charles Barkley for the X and O's of the game, ever. It's not what you do. It's like listening to Terry Bradshaw on NFL for Fox. You don't care about the X and O's. You just care about the punchline. It's funny. It's fine. Be Charles Barkley. I'd rather listen to Ernie if I need some X and O shit. It's just the way it goes. It's a great show, but you have your role. You're the king of that show. We get it. but they come to you for different shit. So for a guy like JJ Redick, that's a very, very analytical X and O's type of person or mindset of how he sees the game, you and him are never gonna get along. Just the way it goes. So for JJ, he's like, you know what, old man, you go ahead and hold that. You can have it. If I had this fucking podcast before, I'd let you really have it, but I'm gonna just let it slide. That's what you do. So I like the way he handled it, because if it was me, I'd have told his no championship ass about himself, about how you want to criticize players for teaming up when you and your old ass went on the Houston Rockets at the end of your career and wanted to team up and win a championship and ended up tearing your Achilles and couldn't do much. So I could say that, but why? It's his story. We know this. It's there. It's fine. Moving on.